Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Anti-government protesters in Kazakhstan's main city Almaty have stormed the mayor's office on a second day of protests over fuel prices. Thousands of people took to the streets despite a state of emergency in some areas. Over 100 officers have been injured during the demonstrations that have often turned violent. It's after President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev accepted the Kazakhstan government's resignation. Protests are rare in the former Soviet country, which is tightly controlled by the government. Damaged police vehicles have been abandoned en masse by authorities due to the level of violence against them. French President Emmanuel Macron has warned he intends to make life difficult for people in France who have not been vaccinated against COVID-19. "I really want to hassle them and we will continue to do this to the end," he told a French newspaper. But political opponents said the strong language he used in the interview was not worthy of a president. His comments prompted MPs to suspend a debate on a law barring the unvaccinated from much of public life. 2 drones have been shot down by Iraq's air defences as they approach the Ain al-Assad airbase, which hosts US forces west of Baghdad. Night vision footage shows the moment they were shot down. US officials in recent weeks had warned that they expected an uptick in attacks against US forces in Iraq and Syria, in part because of the second anniversary of the killing of the top Iranian general Qasem Soleimani. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in has called for dialogue hours after the North fired a suspected ballistic missile off its east coast. In remarks at a ceremony at the coastal city of Gosong, Moon acknowledged the launch raised concerns of tensions and called for the North to make sincere efforts for communication. The launch was first reported by the Japanese Coast Guard before being confirmed by defense authorities in Seoul. It is the first missile to be fired since leader Kim Jong-un pledged to bolster the country's defense capabilities last month. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida told reporters the launch was very regrettable. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has chaired 2022's first cabinet meeting, with the COVID pandemic topping the agenda as infection numbers continue to rise nationwide. Germany needs to consider further restrictions on social contact and must ramp up the number of people who have had booster vaccinations as the Omicron variant takes hold. Olaf Scholz is due to meet regional leaders on Friday to discuss how to respond to the spread of the variant. Meanwhile, a farmer in northern Germany has used a flock of sheep to try and spread the COVID-19 vaccine message. Using drones and approximately 700 sheep and a few goats, he managed to create a giant 100-metre-long syringe seen in full from the air. With a month to go to the Winter Olympics, the Chinese president has visited venues and inspected the infrastructure. Xi Jinping encouraged organisers to deliver a green, safe and simple Beijing 2022 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Bosses say a closed-loop bubble will be created in which participants can only leave if they are exiting the country or undergoing quarantine. More than 2,000 international athletes are set to come to China for the Games. Meanwhile, football players from around the world have left their clubs to travel to the Africa Cup of Nations, which starts on January the 9th, with security and health fears hanging over the tournament. Armoured vehicles are patrolling the streets in Cameroon's conflict-torn southwest region ahead of the finals that separatist militants have vowed to disrupt. Favourite Senegal's preparations have also been thrown into chaos after 9 members of their group, including 3 players, tested positive for COVID-19. Attendances at the Games will be capped at between 60% and 80% of capacity because of the pandemic. And finally, a Moroccan man born without limbs has begun coaching one of the country's youth teams. Despite being born without fully formed arms or legs, Abdel Khalek El Ouagadi used to play soccer with other children in his village, mostly as a goalkeeper. But as he got older, he instead began observing how the other children played and gave them feedback on their technique. Dubbed the miracle coach by his colleagues and supporters, he now hopes to move on to coaching at higher levels in the championship. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.